everybody, if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Gina Holmes and this is Canning 101. It's so easy, guys, and I know a lot of people are scared of the old pressure cooker because it like rattles and it makes steam and it seems like it's going to explode. There is nothing to be afraid of. We're going to learn today and we're going to kind of get over that fear of the pressure cooker. And today we are going to be canning green beans because it was something that I want to put up on my shelf, and it's just one of the simpler recipes with the pressure canner. Now with canning, there's a couple of basic canning methods. There is dry canning of things like grains, which we'll talk about in another video for long-term storage. There is water bath canning for foods that are high in acid, like fruits and tomatoes. And then for most everything that's low acid, including meats, a lot of vegetables and different things, we use pressure canning. And this is going to give us a way to use up our extra vegetables or to just do it because we want convenience. It's a lot faster to open up a can and put out our already cooked vegetables into soups and stews and side dishes. And you will replace these. You can buy these just at the grocery store, at Tractor Supply, Walmart, anywhere. You can also get them on Amazon, and I will link that below. They have different sizes. This one is a pint, but they're a quart, and then they have half gallon, and they even have gallon. But pints are the most convenient because if you have a big pressure cooker like this, you can stack the pints. So you can do 2 layers at once, which will save you a lot of time if you're doing a large amount. We have regular mouth jars, which you're probably used to seeing. Also large mouth jars. And so I like the large rim because it's just easier to get stuff out of. It's a little more convenient. This might be better if you're going to be pouring something out of it, but it doesn't matter. It's just your preference, and either will work just fine. These will reuse indefinitely. These jar lids, you are recommended to replace each time you use them and toss them. Now, in the past, they used to recommend that you would heat these up before using, and now they have found over the years that that doesn't make any difference, so you do not have to heat these up anymore. You just want to make sure that they're clean. As far as equipment you're going to need, we have a funnel that's specifically for mason jars. We have a jar lifter because they're really hot. When you finish cooking them, you'll want to lift them out. And then we have a debubbler, and then on the bottom it has a magnet, and this is really useful for picking things up like the jar lids. So in this little gauge here, and I'm going to bring it closer to the camera, we'll show you how many pounds of pressure. So it looks kind of like a clock face, but most things, if you are sea level, are going to be about 10 pounds. For vegetables, it is. Or for these vegetables, it is low acid vegetables. And I am above sea level, so my pounds of pressure is 15, and that sounds really complicated. It doesn't need to be complicated. You're going to get yourself. This is the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. It is wonderful. It's got all sorts of recipes like chutney and salsas and jellies and jams and different things. But this has all the information that you need. And so it will tell you, you just have to Google your city and your elevation levels. 2 ways to do it. So you can either blanch your vegetables before you can it, which just basically means flash cooking it. And we're not going to talk about that today because the other way is called raw packing. And I prefer raw packing whenever possible because it's just less cooking. If I'm cooking my vegetables ahead of time, then I'm putting it in my pressure cooker and cooking again. It's just more processing, losing more nutrients. The first thing we're going to do is clean our green beans. We're going to want some kind of vinegar and either a paper towel or a clean cloth. And what we're going to do is use this for cleaning our rims, which I will show you when we get to that part. While you're cutting and cleaning your green beans, go ahead and heat up your mason jars in your oven so that they won't bust when the hot liquid enters them. 3 to 350 for about 10 minutes should be plenty. Now we have our green beans, and they are all destemmed, and the nasty little ends and things are cut off, and then I snap them in half so that they will fit in the jars. We are going to want to save an inch of headspace, and I actually measured this out, and the headspace on these jars, these are the pint jars, is going to be right below this ring. So our canning jars filled up pretty good. Remember, we wanted to keep an inch of headspace at the top of them. It's not an exact science. You do the best you can. And if you have to err on the side of too much headspace or too little, err on the side of a little bit much. So we're going to go ahead. This is our boiling water. And if your jars, if you hadn't preheated your jars, you forgot, or you just don't feel like fooling with it, you can go ahead and put a metal spoon in there in the jar before you pour the hot water, and that will prevent the jars from breaking. So this might not be enough water for all of them. This electric tea kettle, which again I'm going to link below, will boil very quickly, so I'm not too worried about it. Next, we could add a teaspoon of salt to each of these. Now that is not necessary. You can add less, like half a teaspoon, a quarter teaspoon, or you can do no salt. I'm going to do no salt. It's not that healthy, and frankly, I don't really like a lot of sodium. So you do that to what you would like. Okay, so all our jars are filled up, and now that's when the debubbler comes in, and we are going to just press down, and you're going to see bubbles rise up. And a lot of times you'll realize you had a lot more room in this jar than you thought. I'm also finding little stems and things. And if there is an extra green bean, if it's just too tall for it to give you a head space of 1 inch, you can just break it up and do that. I've got a few that are like that, or added to another jar that maybe has more. So you're just kind of packing them in. Your green beans to be mostly covered with the liquid, or fully covered if possible. I think they would just discolor a little bit if they weren't, but I don't think they wouldn't go bad or anything like that. But you just want to do that. So we're using our debubbler, going around a couple times and making sure everybody's got 1 inch of head space, and making sure that there's no air pockets in there, because we want the liquid on all the green beans. We want everything to heat up, and we want to make sure that everything is good and packed in there. And then after that, easy peasy, we're going to, oops, I almost forgot, which is something you never ever want to forget, is to clean your rims. So you want to go around the rims of your jar and make sure that there are no blemishes, breaks, cracks. And this is where you're taking your vinegar. I have my clean rag, a paper towel is fine, and I'm going to clean them with a little bit of vinegar. I'm going to run it along the outside. Make sure they're clean and smooth, and that there's no debris on there, because if there's debris on there, your little rubber ring on here is not going to make a good seal with this, and that's when botulism comes in. I'm also looking on here and making sure that there's no blemishes and debris on that also, because that is the other portion of the seal. So there we go. We're just setting those on top. And then the last piece of this portion is we're getting our ring, and these are completely reusable. We are just screwing that on. Make sure that it's screwing on level, and just finger tight. You don't want to be wrenching it on, because you're going to be removing this at the end if you choose. Now, a lot of people will say to definitely remove the ring when you're storing them after they're canned, because, and the rationale is because if the jar is going bad, the seal will pop off if the ring is not there, falsely holding it in place. And you'll want to know that it's bad before you eat it. Now, because I have so many rings and I have such limited space, I will store mine with the rings on, knowing that that is a possibility. But from what I hear, I've not had a bad jar, but from what I hear, they tend to be pretty obvious anyway. But the recommendation is that you store the jars. Once they're canned, you take the ring off and store it with just the seal. Now we're up to the fun part, and the part that's scary for a lot of people, but it shouldn't be scary. Now all we're doing, if these jars are hot, you can use your this little contraption to lower them in, but I'm just going to set them in because my jars are not too hot to handle. And I'm just setting them in, and I'll get you a little shot of that in a second. Now I ended up with 10 jars from what we, all those green beans we had, and this fits on the bottom of this, it fits 8 pint-sized jars. So what we're going to do, you can purchase these separately. This is a nifty little rack, and I will link that below too if I can find one that's still available. And I'm going to set that on top, and then I am just going to pile my other ones on there. Now we're just going to put our lid on, and this is the part that's so helpful if someone has can tell you how to do it. It's not easy if you don't know the trick, but the trick is very simple. Once you know it, there is an arrow on top of this, and then there is one that is on the side. There it is. See that arrow right, let's see, right there. You're going to line that up with the arrow that is on mine it's on the handle, but there's an arrow on your pan, and you're going to line those up, and it won't seal if you don't do that. And we're going to slide it over. Easy peasy. Now you want to go ahead and unvent, which just means remove the weight on top. I want to leave it unvented for 10 minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and set my timer. And they do recommend that you go ahead and keep a notebook and paper and write your times down, because if your timer fails you, then you may ruin your whole batch of food, and you certainly don't want to do that. Okay guys, so we've vented our pressure cooker for 10 minutes, and now we are going to add our handy dandy weight to it. And now the next thing we are looking for is this pressure gauge, because I'm above sea level. I'm waiting for this little hand to get up to the 15 mark. And when that does, I can begin my timing. With green beans is going to be 20 minutes. So as you can see, our gauge isn't quite up to the 15 pounds of pressure that we need it to be, but we're getting very close. While we're waiting for our green beans to cook, remember to never leave your pressure cooker unattended. If it starts going above your recommended pounds of pressure, just turn your heat back a little bit. Don't forget to subscribe, click the bell notification, and it really helps me out if you give me a thumbs up. Once your 20 minutes is up, just turn your heat off and wait for your pressure cooker to go back down to 0 pounds of pressure. So our pressure gauge came back down to 0, and so I removed the weight from the top, and I'm just going to very gently and back away because the steam can burn you. I'm removing. So now we're going to get our jar lifter. So you're just going to lift them out, and you're going to set them on a surface that's not cold so your jars don't break. And a lot of times the seals will it will seal while it's in the canner, even before it comes out, but a lot of times it can take up to 24 hours to seal. And you'll hear this like cute little pop, pop, pop as they seal, and that's just such a good sound. But sometimes you just don't hear it because you're just busy doing something else. And so I'm just going to lift my jars up out of the way and set them all out. And then when they're done, they again, and I'm be careful touching this. I will check to make sure that the center seal, you can sort of see that indent. It's kind of hard to see. Indent right there is in. So this one is already sealed. So here's an empty jar that is not sealed, and you see it's hard to see on the camera, but it's like sort of out a little bit, not in. And so I'm going to push on it. You see how it just keeps coming back out? That's not sealed. Or if you push it in, it stays in for a second, but then it pops out. If it's popping out, this is not something you would want to eat. And again, they recommend that you unscrew for storage, unscrew, and just leave this on there. This is sealed. I know it makes you kind of feel scared that maybe it's not good enough. And then you can gently try to pry this off. You don't want to try too hard, but if it feels like it's on there pretty good, you can go ahead and put it with your storage, and you have green beans with a shelf life of years. I hope that you enjoyed that and got something out of it. Thanks for watching. 'Cause no one can do it like